Hey everyone, we're back to do something that hopefully no one else has done because there are a million reviews of the SNES Classic, and that would just be boring to be in that whole mix. What I plan on doing today is something that I haven't seen anyone do yet, and that's talk about the retro receiver that we have right here from 8BITDO. I hear some people call it 8BITDO, so I don't know the real name of the company. I don't know if anyone does, but I always thought they were like Nintendo, so 8BITDO, but you guys can argue that later. I got these probably about 4 or 5 months ago, and they work for the NES Classic. So I was hoping right away they'd plug in and work for the SNES Classic, and they don't. What happens is all the triggers end up being like the L and R buttons are like turbos and stuff, so they weren't all mapped right. So I just decided to go up to their site and see if they've had an update, and they did. So I'm going to show the walkthrough on this update on a Mac, and it should be very similar for a PC. But I'm just going to go through this because sometimes these things are really finicky and it gets a little frustrating, but you just got to know to try it a couple times and it will work. So the first thing you have to do to upgrade this firmware is you actually go onto their site up here and you go down into, which is 8bitdo.com, pretty obvious, but you click on their product, like the retro receiver down here, and as you scroll down, you will see, whoops, I'm in the wrong spot. You go up to support, sorry. You hit support, and then you go down to the download section for the retro receiver, and they've got all the downloads you need. This is the instructions you'll see that'll tell you how to sync everything up after. So we're going to go to the firmware tab up top here, and we're going to go down to download. Now I've already done all this, so you just click download and it goes into your download folder. So I've already done that. I've taken the download folder and extracted it onto my desktop. So the next thing you have to do is you take this device and you actually push the sync button first and you hold it in. Don't let it go. Hold it in while you plug it into the adapter, your USB adapter, and you will see, if you do it right. Oh wait, let's start that over. What you have to do is actually run the program first, I'm thinking. So we're going to go over to, let's see, this must be it, the retro receiver, our firmware. Alright, so we open up the software, and if you have a Mac you have to give it permissions. So right now you see it is not connecting to anything right now. I did an update. I have two of these, so I've already done an update on one. So now what you do is you hold down that button, the red button, and plug it in, and it turns green. There. Okay, so once you have that flashing green, you go up to your folder with your tools in it and you start your tools, and if you have a Mac you have to add that to the security permissions, and then you click update, and then you find your folder where the update file is, and we're at version 1.07. You click on the .dat, and then it asks you right there the file firmware version 1.7. You want to choose that. You hit OK, and then it will start updating, and you see a little progress bar. It only takes a few seconds. It's not long at all. You see it'll flash green, and it'll stop once the update's complete. So while that's happening, I want to talk about a lot of people out there saying that there was a ton of scalpers out and about, and we're from a pretty small area. We're up in Maine, and we're near Augusta. So Augusta is kind of a big city for Maine, but nothing like Portland. And the people there in line were very nice. I didn't see any scalpers in line. I don't know if big cities end up having that, where they have hundreds of these and they get people in line just trying to make a quick buck. But I don't think that we had any trouble with that in this area, at least. So there we go. The update is done, and you'll see this is flashing blue now. Maybe bring it down here so you can see the blue a little better. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Get it up close. So you know it's done. Then you just got to unplug it, and we'll bring it over and test it on the system. Another quick thing is if anyone's syncing up with one of their, I've got the 8BITDO FC30 Pro and this limited edition one that they made that looks like an old Apple. I can't remember what exactly they called it, but I've updated the other one and I have not updated this one yet. So I'll quickly show how to update these, because you'll want to do that first, and then you'll want to put it in mode 1, which if you look right over here, mode 1 is just holding down your power button, and I'll do that right now even before I update it. Okay, so what you do is you just hold the power button down, and then when it comes on, 1, 2, 3, let go, and you'll be in mode 1, and you can tell it's in mode 1 because it's flashing just once. 1, 1. If it's in the other modes, any mode 2, 3, 4, you get flash, 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 flash. So that's how you set that into that mode. But if you want to update this real quick, you do the same thing. Before, it's a little different, but before you go into it, I'll power this off for a moment. And then when you want to update the firmware, you hold your power and your, I don't know what that second button's called on here, but it's kind of the mode button. So I just hold both those in, and you'll see it starts flashing this yellow amber color. I'm not sure how it's turning out on there, but that's what you do. You get it in that mode, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to their, I downloaded their firmware again from their website for these. So you want the N30 Pro or the F30 Pro, so Nintendo. But this one I have, it was a special edition, and it's one of these. So you open that up, and you do the same thing. You start their software for the update, the firmware update. And I think I've got to close it first because I've already done one, so I'm going to quit that. I'm just going to run it again and click on the firmware version. Oops, of course it won't do anything till I plug it in. So now that I've got it in that mode, I got the software running to update the firmware. You plug it in, and then it says what version you have right here. So you've got 1.72, and they're up to, let's see, let's go to the update, and let me go right in that folder. And we can see they're up to version 4.01. So you go ahead and hit OK. And obviously I haven't updated this for a while because I've been able to use it. The last time I updated one of these, I updated this version I have, the 8BITDO FC30 Pro, and that's probably updated to version 3, or maybe it was 4 already because I was connecting that to my Switch. They added that function to it. So this one hasn't been updated for a long time because I've been still using it on the Mac, so I didn't need to update it, so I hadn't bothered. But again, it updates pretty quick, and once it's complete with the update, it'll just start flashing blue, and then you'll be able to use it with all of the other functions of whatever they've added, like Steam function and function with this classic adapter, wireless adapter, the retro receiver. And there we go, it's all set, and you see it starts flashing blue again, and it's green because I have it plugged into the USB, meaning it's directly connected, but if I disconnect it, it'll probably start changing to blue, and because it's not synced up yet, it's still flashing. But we will go test these now on the SNES Classic. Okay, we are ready to test this on the Super Nintendo Classic, and right now I've already got one in there, so I'm going to see if it still syncs up because I'm curious to see. When you plug these little fellows in, they flash blue to show you that they're powered, and I wasn't sure if you had to charge those or not, but I think it just draws the power right through them, so I'm just going to turn this on. These are kind of weird to me, I don't know always how, so they turn on. So that should be flashing. I don't know if I have to sync this every time, but I would think that it would retain it, but I haven't had a lot of success with these just syncing up automatically all the time, so what I will do is resync it. Oh, no, they caught. See, sometimes they don't catch and you just have to resync them, and you just got to know the steps to resync, so it's good to keep the manual, the online manual, just on your desktop or print it out or something. So that synced up, and we can see, actually, I'll hold this right up here. All the buttons work now, and I'll test it in Super Mario World. That's probably the easiest one to show. Now, before I updated that retro receiver, what would happen is when you push these top two triggers, they would work as just turbo buttons. So I was happy to find out that you don't have to buy new ones just for the Super Nintendo Classic, that you're able to reprogram it and just use them over and over. And after I do this, I haven't done it yet, but once I'm completed all these updates, I'm going to try them back in the NES Classic and make sure they still function in there. So I haven't gotten anywhere yet in this, I'm just starting, but you can see you get the spin jump, you get your regular jump, your speed. Now what was happening though is you couldn't even use the speed before because this was a jump, this was a jump, and these were mimicking the AB buttons, the XY, and then these two, the left and the right, would just be like if you went to push the left, it wouldn't scroll like that, it would just keep jumping like that. It was turbo button. So now you can see it's working perfectly. So anyone that has these, you just got to update your firmware and resync everything and they'll work. So now what I'm going to try and do, if we come back down here, I'm just going to try and resync. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to just use a Wii-Mote because the Wii-Mote seems to just work as a standard controller like this. It doesn't seem to register that you have like one of the classic controllers plugged in, because I've tried all of these with this before I went to the firmware update. So now I'm going to find out if we can actually sync this up with this and if it'll make a change on that, or if it will only work with these controllers, or you can use a PlayStation controller or one of the advanced controllers from Nintendo. Those work too. So I'm just going to hit the sync. This is a really cheap one we bought. So that's waiting to sync. And then I'll hold this button in right here for about 1, 2, I don't know if it shows up well, but that's flashing now. And it takes a couple times, but they usually will sync up. Oh, and there it goes. That synced up. This one dropped out, you can see. And now I've got this plugged in. And let's see. Yeah, it still doesn't Oh, it does. Look at that. That's great, because before you couldn't use this at all. I was even trying without updating that, and now it registers that these are Super Nintendo controllers. So that was really well worth it. I can pick stuff up again. Before I could just jump, so any games like Ghosts and Goblins or Ghouls and Ghosts, whichever one you play, was pretty good because you still had the two buttons. There we go. All right, well, that was a success. I don't know if there's much else to show, but anyone that has these receivers, the retro receivers, you just got to go onto 8BITDO's site, upgrade the firmware, and you will then be able to use your Super Nintendo controllers, and you'll get full function on that. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully this was helpful, and I don't think anyone's done this yet, and these things can be a little confusing. But if you ever see that they don't sync up right away on the first time you push these, just go through the process once or twice, and eventually it will sync up. If you've got the firmware upgraded, it will work. They don't always catch the first time, but a good tip is to make sure that you hit the sync button on your controller first, then push that in to hit the sync, and it catches a lot better than if you push this first and this starts flashing and then you try and sync up after. So hopefully that'll help some folks. You won't spend any extra money thinking that you got to buy special ones for each version here, because now they work for both, and I can't say that there's any better way to play than this. There's literally zero lag. Oh, obviously we're running out of time, but there's no lag that I notice, and it's better than just buying controller extensions and having like a 10-foot controller cable. All right, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the future. Bye.